Welcome everyone to what's today? I just asked myself and I forgot. It's April 19th, 2021. Yes, I don't know what happened to the first 4 months, but it's just been flying through. But welcome to all of you from everywhere in the world. I would love for you to chat, put it on the chat where you are from, because I was thinking about who am I speaking to? And I started listing all these countries. So it's kind of exciting. So feel free to put that up there. And I already said welcome, but it's worth saying welcome again. And wherever you are, I hope you're starting to enjoy the seasonal change. And this means seasonal changes in your diet also. So I just wanted to quickly mention that if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we're going into the spring, right? Spring is the time of very wet and muddy time. So that's considered to be the kapha time of the year. So you want to make sure that your food is starting to slightly lighten up a little bit. So if you've been doing a lot of fats and maybe bone broths and you've been doing heavy foods that are a little bit more warming to you over the winter seasons that we needed to do that. That's very good for us. But now maybe slowly start shifting. You still want to cook your vegetables. You still want to use fats, but maybe lighten up the fats a little bit. Maybe use different kind of fats. Maybe you do a little bit more omega-6 fats. So olive oil's fine. Those are a little bit more omega-9s, but you can start to bring in some seed oils and things like that, not to cook with, but as like dressings and things like that. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're going into more of a Vata season, not, like full on yet, but this is kind of the harvesting time, right? You're beginning to collect energy for the winter to come. So you want to make sure that you're not drying your body out too much, but you don't want to create too much heaviness yet. But make sure you're not just doing salads and really dry foods and lots of yin foods and raw fruits. And those are not going to help you to maintain good skin, good hair, and keeping your lungs moist and healthy for the winter. So begin to shift your diet now that we're going into a different season. All right. And Chris, you see, where are they all from?
Yeah, we've got a nice collection. Even just not everybody has responded, but for those of you that have, we have a couple from Texas, from Calgary in Canada, from Barbados, from California, from Ireland, Reno, Nevada, New Jersey, London, UK, San Francisco, and that's just who's responded. So welcome to everybody
Yay!
else.
Yeah, welcome. And for those of you that are going to be listening tomorrow too. So, okay, so today, shall we get started on the topic? Cheryl asked, you specified cooking or veggies. I emulsify them, Vitamix, so I can eat more things I'm not crazy about, such as radishes, dandelion green. Is that a spices?
Spicy, I think.
Spicy or okay, stuff that I can usually handle. Yeah. So, you don't need to do spicy things, and that's going to be based on your constitution also. So I don't do that well with too many spicy things, except for more like a curry based spices, I do fine. But when it comes to green chilies or red chilies, more of a nightshades based spices, I do not do well. So like black pepper, I don't do well with it either. And part of it is that, as you can probably tell by now, for those of you that have been following me for a while, I got a little feisty streak in me, just a little bit, little fire in me, right? So when I do too much spicy things, I get even more fiery and it just dries me up. Okay. So I have a very dry constitution as well as fiery. So that's a combination that I need to watch out. That's why I'm married to a very wet, muddy human being called Chris, because he's a wet,
Remember that, everyone. Wet and
muddy,
muddy. Yeah.
wet, wet and muddy person that I'm with. So it's perfect because I'm dry, blowing in the wind, and I set myself on fire sometimes and it just get very fiery. So he comes over and he goes, Okay, it's all right. So for me, the spicy foods generally do not work. They actually literally make me angry. Like I would sit there and see Chris is shaking his head saying yes, because I literally will be angry eating things that are too spicy. So I think it's fine. And blending is a form of cooking to a certain degree. Okay. It's different if you're just doing like raw vegetables only. But cooking and making them into soups and things like that, that will be a very good way to support your digestion. All right. So, yeah, radishes can be spicy, can't they? And the springtime radishes are meant to be a little spicy. Did you know that, everyone? So that it wakes up your liver and gallbladder. But the radishes, like a daikon radish, they are sweeter in the winter. So we call it the sweet daikon radishes in the winter because the sweetness makes you feel more grounded in the winter. And that's what we want. But in the spring, we want to kind of start to wake ourselves up in the northern hemisphere. That's why the radishes become a little spicy. All right.
Wanted to read Claire's comment. She says, maybe the whole culture is angry because too many people are eating spicy and getting all fired up. I think there might be something to that, Claire.
Those crazy hot sauces out there, and we're losing our taste buds, literally. So it's and there are a lot of actually neurological connections with people that tend to want to eat spicy and they can't get enough of it and they get spicier and spicier and spicier with their food choices. There's some neurological inflammation that comes along with it. So you want to pay attention. It's like if your degree of spices have gone up over the years, pull back and see what is going on here. Why am I wanting more spicy? And the number one place that we go when we work with clients that just keep putting more spice to it and they can't get hot enough, like they want to order these crazy Thai curry that it's like, it's literally going to burn you from the inside out. I say you need to check out the zinc level. That person's zinc might be low. So their taste buds have really weakened, also the sense of smell. And that's going to have an impact on your limbic part of the brain. Okay, so that's probably enough science there. Shall we get started on our topic today, Chris?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, good to see you. I have not seen you all day.
Oh yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah. All right. You want to start with
Sorry, we took a moment there. Okay, yeah. So
I was kind of hoping you would start with the quote that you were
I was
going to
just looking at you from. Okay, well I'll go ahead and start. Well, so the topic we are going to talk about today is about the C word. In case you're wondering, is commitment. So if any of you are starting to sweat a little bit, that's the word. Okay, it's commitment. So we have a few things that we want to talk about with this because, as you might have guessed, anything that you have in mind to do in your life requires commitment for it to start or to move from an idea to something that you actually set in motion and then are able to complete and look back on and say, I did this. So some of the things we were going to talk about, let me just start out with this one very simple concept, which is there's a very important distinction to make, and it's just a matter of words. But I want you to just check in with yourself and see if you can notice yourself doing this. Okay? There's a big difference between agreement, which if you're sitting with a group full of people, you know you have agreement when people start talking and the heads start nodding. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, somebody maybe should do that sometime if they think it's good. Yeah, great, good. Okay, so agreement is something that it doesn't necessarily imply action. To agree with somebody doesn't make you responsible for anything, right? Nodding your head never really signed you up for anything in most circumstances. There are some exceptions where that might be mistaken. But generally speaking, we can agree to all kinds of things without ever taking a step toward them. So I wanted to make that contrast very clear before we talk about commitment, because commitment is where you go from merely agreeing that something is a good idea to actually taking the action to put it in motion. So we wanted to talk about that and what goes into that. So one of the things that I wanted to ask all of you, if you want to put an answer in the chat, I want you to just think about this, because whoever you are, wherever you live, however old you are, somewhere in your life, you have had a success with committing to something where you've seen it through from the idea to the completion. So I just want you to ask yourself right now, what is an example of that? It doesn't have to be just recently, it could be, but just something that you have made a commitment to. It's important that you acknowledge this for yourself. What is something that you have committed to and you know you've seen it through from the very beginning until the completion of it? Or maybe you're even still in the commitment right now. Okay, we could think of some general examples of very long-term commitments like kids or marriage, okay, something like that. But what is something personal to you? And if you want to share it in the chat for us to see, then, oh, okay, Steve quitting smoking. Okay, it's a good one. Building a house. Starting an
Mm.
interior design business, completing my MFA. Wow. Learning how to produce my own radio program on writing. These are great.
Wow.
Whistleblowing against law enforcement. Okay, that's
Big.
okay.
That's a commit. That's a huge commitment.
Income
Yeah.
tax.
Income tax. You're right.
That's that is a commitment.
Yes.
Getting my
Every year.
master's degree while working full time as a teacher. I can relate to that one personally. Selling our house. Okay, these are great examples.
Going outside every morning and saying good morning to the morning and doing breathing exercise.
For me, it's making a commitment to sit and meditate every morning before I do anything else. That's a simple one. Oh, here's another one, chairing fundraising events. Okay, great. So these are good concrete examples. So I want to make the point, 21 years sober and not smoking. Okay, I want to just say that too. Okay, there's a lot more there. 8 years working at night full time with 2 little kids, getting my undergrad, becoming certified clinical chaplain at 57 while working full time. These are great, incredible.
Wow.
That's a whole layered smorgasbord of commitments. They're making a commitment to a daily meditation practice. Yeah. So
Mm.
these are really great
Mm.
examples. So let's shift this conversation just a little bit. I'm going to hand it back to Masami on this part. But let's just think about, I'm going to ask you one more question before I do this. When you think about what you are committing to, or maybe now let's move it into the realm of what you would like to commit to, something that is a change of course, a change in direction, something either maybe you haven't tried before or haven't quite managed to figure out how to accomplish it yet. What gets in the way of forming a commitment and then seeing it through? Just throw out some examples that you've run into. What gets in the way of it? Because this is equally important. Knowing what you want to commit to. Okay, well, let's see what's coming in. Physical energy, lack of energy. Yes, let's hear some more. Okay, because what gets in the way is just as much of an issue. Addiction, too many interests, and getting sidetracked. Okay. Now we're getting down to the human level here. Okay, we have our aspirations, but we have to acknowledge this. Okay, losing weight, periodically stress eat, overthinking, regular sleep schedule, fear-based boundaries, getting overwhelmed, can't make decisions about simple things, chaotic thinking from ADD, overwhelm. Okay, so we're seeing some patterns here.
When I see Claire earlier said that the toxic community of food and the corporate 24/7 corporate news feed. Yeah.
Yep, just that's a whole toxic spread right there. Okay, these are great, and these are very much in line with what we are going to talk about today. And it's not surprising in all the work that we do with people, this comes up again and again and again, these very same examples. And I just want to point out to all of you that if you start to look really carefully at what it is that makes your life feel good and feel like it's worth living, and the things that give it color and brightness and sharpness and in a positive sense, those often become the very same things that create stress in our lives. So our physical health, our mental health, our family relationships, our relationships with other people, finances, our spiritual connection, our job and our work life, our community connections, All of those kinds of things are absolutely both positives that we need to take care of, and they're also things that can feel like they get in the way or they create stress for us. But what we wanted to really come back to and focus on today was how to come back into our bodies, big surprise, and harness what we have available to us physically, physiologically, because that is what generates the basis for the energy that we use in our minds, in our imagination, and to fuel the energy that it takes to make a commitment and see it through. All right, so I'll pass the baton.
Well, I think you can read the quote too, maybe after, but I wrote on the today's Monday call, I wrote down, when you make a commitment to doing something, you make a pledge to your soul. And I see it as an oath to my inner being. So it's a devoted promise that you make to yourself when you say, I commit to doing something. But often what I see, and then, we're going to talk about it more from maybe a health standpoint so we can support the energy, because there's a lack of metabolic energy that makes people stop on their tracks, or like they can't move forward and they can't follow through their commitment because they're just too exhausted. And exhausted because maybe toxic environment they're living in, because their body is toxic, they're not getting enough sleep. But so we like to look at it from a metabolic energy standpoint so that they can make the real commitment for what they said they were going to do. And often what I see is that, people say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm definitely going to do this. And we're excited in the beginning. It's almost like going to some kind of a weekend retreat and you just feel awesome for 72 hours. But they've done studies to show that the 72 hours after those kind of events, most people just go back to their own patterns. They just don't seem to change the way they do things. And sometimes I feel like the commitment is made from a comparison standpoint. Like, I want to be like so-and-so, so I'm going to make a commitment. That's the one that I see that it always fails. If you're making a commitment based on comparison and also competition, right? I'm going to make this commitment because I'm doing somebody bid on me and then I'm going to do this, or, something like that, right? Or making the commitment just based on, because I want to do this, I've been wanting to do this, I want to lose weight, or I want to do that. But the desire isn't matching up with the brain. The brain is struggling to go into the mode of what you're trying to do. And the brain's like, I think we've done this before and it has always failed for us. So what's different this time? And so you need to sit down and convince the brain that this time we're going to make this differently. We're going to take this differently. And you have to coach yourself through it. Otherwise, we're pretty much kind of programmed in our brains over the decades of doing very similar things. And it's important to remember physiologically that the brain is a very energy intensive organ, as well as very sensitive to energy shifts, but also very lazy. Okay. Brain, I'm going to just call it quote unquote, very lazy organ, meaning because it has to do so much all day long, every day, that it will tend to choose the way that the water flows. Okay, so if you pour water, if there's a slant in a certain directions, it's going to always try to flow the same way because it's easier. Been there, done that. So commitment requires you to rewire your brain differently, think differently, and you have to combine the different parts of the brain to convince yourself that this time we're going to do this differently and we have to follow through it this way. And it's going to make me feel a little uncomfortable at first, but we can do this. And we have to cheer yourself on. Okay, so that is a key to, I think, making the commitment last. Okay, but also we need the metabolic energy. And this is where I would like for Chris to chime in. But the metabolic energy is basically based on, how are you digesting? Do you have a detoxification pathways that are open? So if your lungs are congested, your brain is congested, or you're not pooping regularly, you're having diarrhea or constipation, or you're having no digestion with fats, that's a stress to the body. And your body will say, I don't care what kind of commitment you're making for this new thing you want to do. We have no energy for that. We have to just take care of the basics. We're dehydrated. We need the water. We need the sleep. We need some sunshine. These are the basic building blocks before you can actually continue to make the commitment. So maybe you've noticed that the level of your commitment at first is high, but as you begin to get exhausted, you're not sleeping, you're not digesting, you're not eating well, you're getting energy sucked out of you, then the commitment starts to dwindle. And eventually you say, forget it, maybe next time, right? So we've really got to take care of this whole system, body, mind, and spirit. So I'll pause there for a moment.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of here too is that, something that Masami and I have developed, and we don't normally talk about it too much outside of what would be a training environment or a training context, but there are a couple of different ways that we move through life, and they both require energy, and they require different types of energy. So there's like a burst, a spurt of energy that you need to initiate something, but then you also need to have the staying power of having it last over time to be able to sustain the effort. And so these are both metabolic and emotional, psychological kinds of energy. And so one of the things that, like Masami was just saying, you may notice at the beginning of a project or a process that your energy levels are high. This is actually very common. In fact, you can track this same pattern in people's burnout patterns, where somebody starts out a job, they're very excited, or they start a new relationship, they're very excited, energy is high. And as time goes by, the enthusiasm starts to dip. And then it starts to become a grind. And then it starts to become a dread. And a lot of these things have to do with a whole set of skills. I mean, if it's a relationship, there are many layers to relationship skills. If it's a job, there are many aspects to balancing the responsibilities that you have. But when you come back to your body, this is a daily commitment. So if you're wanting to make bigger term commitments, you have to make a daily commitment to what you're doing in your daily habits and practices. So how are you taking care of your metabolic baseline? That's a really simple way to think about it. And what that means is your metabolic baseline is the bare minimum of requirements that your physical body requires in order to function normally. We talked last week about common and normal, and how sometimes we get mixed up around that because we've been so tied up in what is commonplace that we've adapted ourselves to a sick society, like Krishnamurti said. Masami quoted that last week. So what we need to do is get in touch with what is normal for us. What is our individual, our bio-individual normal baseline? And to answer this question is not as simple as just asking us and having us tell you. You have to do some exploration here. So we could tell you, for example, well, make sure you hydrate. Okay, how much water should I drink in a day? Well, the baseline that we tell people is half of your body weight taken in ounces. If you're in a metric society, we apologize, but you can do that conversion fairly easily. Okay.
Well, it's 0.3 times your kilograms.
There you go.
Then you can get your what liters you need.
Yeah, you'd think after my time in Canada, I could make that conversion in my head, but not so quick today. So hydration, you need to find out for you what that is. So starting with half of your body weight as ounces, or again, about a third of a, what was it again? It was 0.3 times kilos.
Kilos will give you the liters. Yeah.
So liters.
And please know that this means pure water. I'm not talking tea here. I'm not talking juice. I'm not talking about all kinds of things mixed in it, detox teas and peppermint. And So basically, almost all teas will dehydrate you. Particularly detox teas will dehydrate you. The only kinds of teas that do not tend to dehydrate you will be flower-based teas, okay? Like white flower tea kind of thing. They don't dehydrate you much, okay? But lemon juice will dehydrate you also. Are they bad for you? No, but make sure that you follow it up with the pure water, right? And the water that comes out of your refrigerator filtering system is a placebo effect. I'm going to say that again. I've said that before, but it's just that it makes you feel like you're filtering it,
It's
but it's
kind of
not
like
getting,
peekaboo.
it's
It's
not
like
filtered.
peekaboo water. It's like you can kind of pretend a little
It's,
bit like it's
it's
filtering.
like, I think I'm doing the right thing by filtering it through the refrigerator. Okay, it's not.
So let's make this really simple. Okay, if it's not pure water, it's going to probably take away a little bit from your hydration baseline. Okay, that's the simplest way to think about it. To Jim's question about
Yeah.
electrolytes, so most people, just statistically, if we threw a rock into a public space, shouldn't do that, maybe something softer, but we'd probably hit somebody with adrenal issues. And the odds are high that most people on the call here, a majority of them anyway, would have some kind of adrenal impairment just from chronic stress and fatigue and things like that. And so what helps people in terms of electrolytes is just a basic addition of sea salt. Okay. Sea salt, also known as whole salt, and just a little pinch. We actually wrote up a blog piece on this, 2 or 3 years ago that we put on, it's on Masami's website about this. It's just called a pinch of sea salt or something like that. And it's basically the challenge for everybody is to get some sea salt, find a quality that, or find a sea salt that matches you. Masami's talked about this, I think maybe even last week or the week before, about regional salts. So if you are of European ancestry, you may find that a French or British or Irish based salt is more what your body responds to. Masami's from Japan, so she does really well with salts from around that region. Or if you're from India or somewhere else, like in Africa, you may find that there are sources of salt, or Mexico, that have different qualities, different mineral profiles that match up with your physiology a little bit better based on your ancestry. So there's a slight component, but without making it too complicated, you just want to grab a tiny little bit until your body says yes, and then put that into your water. And that sea salt is going to have the 4 basic electrolytes, the major electrolytes, which are calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. But sea salt also has dozens of other micronutrients that are minerals your body needs in order to carry out basic functions. And it really helps you to stay away from dipping into the stress energy production, which is when your stress hormones are released and start creating emergency fuel out of your own body. Okay, that's not a place that you want to spend a lot of time in. And so, Jim, I remember you mentioned being an ultra runner, and so you know all about that, about dipping into the catabolic state to fuel the run, which you have to do when you're in a high endurance kind of athletic activity. But the same thing happens when you're in chronic stress of any kind, regardless of the source. If you're in stress regularly, routinely, day after day after day, you're essentially doing the same thing that long distance runners and other high endurance athletes are doing under these intense performance conditions. And nobody can sustain that. There always has to be a recovery and a rebuild period. So I'm going to mention really quick did you want to say something there?
Yeah, so with the electrolyte, I wanted to make sure, Chris, will you add the potassium powder that we use on our website? Because I just checked it, we don't have it up.
Okay.
So for those of you that are interested in what we put in our first morning water, we'll be happy to share that right now. And then I'm going to have Chris put our potassium powder up there under the store, so you can find it. Okay. And it comes in a powder, and I recommend the powder form. Okay. So I'm going to stick with the electrolyte conversation just a bit longer, if you don't mind. So what happens, everyone, is that first thing in the morning, if you have a pH strips that you use to check your morning urine tends to be a little bit on the acidic side. Okay. It'll probably run towards 6.8, 6.5, somewhere there. You don't want to have it too much acidic either, because then there's something not quite going right in your body either, but it will be a little bit acidic. Okay. So first thing in the morning, what you drink should not be more acidic things. Okay. This is when you don't want to wake up and drink a cup of coffee and move on with your day. That's the worst thing you can do. You want to start with alkaline minerals. Okay. So that's potassium, that's sodium, and then putting a little bit of magnesium in there. And calcium tends to come with those, little magnesium things and stuff. Those are all alkaline minerals. Very, very helpful to start your day with that. And so there's another alkaline, it turns to alkaline in your body, will be the lemon water, because Mary said, I thought your video advised lemon in water and little sea salt. Yeah. So I never said don't drink lemon water. I just said lemon water will dehydrate you if you drink that all day long. Because there's a lot of people that say, I don't like the taste of the water, so I'm just going to squeeze lemon juice and I'm going to drink lemon water all day. Well, that is not very helpful, because that is going to dehydrate you. But first thing in the morning, if you do a little bit of lemon water, great. Pinch of sea salt with it. Or what I do is I make the lemon water, and then I have another glass of water with the potassium. I put iodine drops in there. I got a little magnesium in there, and I put a little pinch of sea salt in there. So it's a very alkaline water that I drink first thing in the morning. That will help you to breathe better. It will make you move better, so that you're shifting your body away from the detox mode into a little bit more alkalinized state. But that doesn't mean you need to go and spend money on alkaline water, please, people. Don't waste your money on alkaline water. That is a gimmicky thing that is out there. Your stomach is supposed to be acidic, okay? You're drinking that as your first water so that you can quench your cells with the less acidity in the body. So you don't want to start with black tea. You don't want to start with the coffee first thing in the morning. After you do the water, do some breathing techniques, move a little bit, meditate if you need to. Then if you're going to have a cup of coffee, that's bio-individual. You will have to decide that on your own, okay? Reverse osmosis water, that depends, Sharon. We got reverse osmosis, but it's the kind that does not take out all the minerals. In fact, puts the minerals back in there. There are companies that do that. I would go with that, but the ones that you buy in the store, grocery stores, where there's a giant reverse osmosis things and you bring your jug and then you fill it kind of thing, or under the counter, they will tend to strip all the minerals out of your water. So you'll be drinking non-mineralized water. So if you're using reverse osmosis solely for your drinking water, you've got to put these things back in that I've mentioned, so you don't end up losing minerals from your body. Okay, so those are a couple of the things. Anything else to add, Chris?
Yeah, just on that note, there were a couple of questions about, so I mean, some people are talking about using.
Mary, hold on a second, Chris.
Go ahead.
Mary, I'm not telling you to drink coffee later. I'm saying drink the coffee after you've had your morning water.
Minutes later.
Not like later in the afternoon. Okay.
No, that's a good point. And same thing about, some of these recommendations, not to get too caught up in the nuances, because honestly, it's your body that's going to tell you which one works best. And it's going to be possibly different at different times. So be open to that. So whether it's apple cider vinegar that you use as a little bit of an acidic wake up to your body, or it's lemon juice, or like Pauline mentions, an Ayurvedic recommendation to do lime instead of lemon. Those are going to be personal matters. They're going to be things that your body may do better or worse with at different times. So I would, I think both of us would say, don't get too caught up on it has to be one or the other of those. You have to go on based on what your body is saying yes to. So, and then to Cheryl's question, again, Masami mentioned two separate glasses. So you can, if you're going to start with lemon, that's going to give you some acidity that actually converts into an alkaline form in your body. Once you put it into your stomach, it converts into what's called alkaline ash. And so, and these other minerals are also alkaline minerals. But it just so happens that these are things that help to put your body at ease. Okay, they help to create the state in your body. They're major electrolytes, and they also are involved in energy production in every cell of your body and pretty much every function of every cell of your body. So it's about giving yourself the basic nutrients that your body needs. And that was really the theme that we were going on. So maybe we can start to come back to that theme of what are
Yeah,
the
so
big.
so to give your energy, you have to check in with your hydration. And you won't believe how many people I work with that will have a list of supplements and they've been doing this and this and that. And then I come to find out that they've been drinking tea all day and they have no energy. And then so they thought that they just need to keep taking more adaptogens and adrenal support and more B vitamins. And, before you do any of those things, you have to check in with yourself and say, am I hydrating myself enough? And then when you're drinking water and you feel like you have to drink water all day long, sipping, and then you just keep going to the bathroom, then that water most likely it's been too filtered or too stripped that doesn't have enough electrolyte in it. And that's why your body cannot absorb them. And generally putting a little bit of potassium powder will resolve that issue pretty quickly. Okay.
All right, so interesting, Jim, drinking filtered rainwater. That's not something that all of us are able to do, but I bet there's some good stuff in there if you're filtering it.
I get such a good
Yeah,
yes on that.
yeah.
I get great yes on that.
If I lived in New York City, I don't know if I'd want to be drinking rainwater of any kind, but it's good if you can do that. So the reason why it's kind of funny that we started out talking about commitment and we're now talking about hydration. So
Well, because it is
let's connect these
important.
dots. Let's
It
connect
is
these dots.
it is connected
Yep,
because without the hydration, you can't make a commitment for 3 o'clock in the afternoon because
right.
you'll be so wiped out by then.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
That's right. So we want to come back to the bigger question here of what are the kinds of things that you need to do in order to keep your body fueled so that the commitments that you make in your mind, okay, the ideas that you have about where you would like your life to go can actually come about because you have the energy to see them through. And this is something that we both see all the time is people would like to do things. Maybe they'd like to promote in their job or they'd like to build something. I mean, some of the examples that all of you gave were great examples of the kinds of things that people want to do in life. And what we've seen is that water makes up, in some cases, 80% or more of the symptoms that people present with when they first come in to get support. And this is an incredible thing. It seems so simple, and it is. We've both seen cases of people who were just completely wiped out, burnt out. They'd been to all kinds of doctors. They'd gotten all sorts of tests done. And then they find out that nothing is wrong with them on paper. All their tests are normal. Everything is normal. The doctors are starting to maybe nudge them towards psychiatrists because maybe it's something in your head. This happens all the time. And it's not a matter of you're losing your mind. I want to put this water analogy into something that I'm doing right now, which is I'm sprouting some seeds. Okay, if you've ever sprouted seeds, you can see this principle at work. What do you do to sprout seeds? All that you do is add water. You put water into them, you rinse them, you let them dry out, you do it again. You do it again. The only thing you're adding is water, and eventually you take the lid off and you expose them to sunlight. Everything else that they need, all the information that they need to grow into a plant is encoded in that seed. The rest of it is water and sun energy. Okay. And I'm not saying live on water and sun energy. So please don't take me literally there. The point I'm making is we're similar in that we are mostly made out of water too, 60 to 70% at different points in our lives. Okay. Everything in our body functions better when we're properly hydrated. So don't overdo it either, because that can have the same effect as not having enough. We have to have the right amount or close to that baseline that we talked about earlier in order for our blood to flow, for our brains to work, for energy to move between our cells, for everything that needs to happen to clear waste and have healthy digestion and every other function of our system. Okay, so this is why coming back to water and commitment is actually vital. It's truly vital. And then when you go from there, there are just a couple of other things if you want to talk about the metabolic baseline. So going from hydration, the next major topic to look at is your other macronutrients, because water is actually one of your macronutrients. It's the biggest one because we need the most of it. So the macronutrients are the nutrients we need in large quantities each day in order to stay healthy and thrive. And so the other three, besides water, are good fats. And by good fats, there are three particular ones. I'll mention those in a second. Protein. So you want to have a high quality protein. And the third one is complex carbohydrates. Okay, complex carbohydrates. This is going to be primarily plant-based carbohydrates, and to a lesser extent, fruit. Okay, out of all of these things, if you look at essential nutrients, meaning the things that our body cannot make or manufacture or synthesize, we have things that are called essential fatty acids. Okay, essential fatty acids. So we have to take them in from our diet. And there are only three kinds. It's omega-3s, omega-6s, and saturated fat. Okay, and this might seem like a primer and the most basic things, that's because it is. Okay, so if you know this, congratulations. I hope you're practicing it. That's the commitment part. So it's why it's connected to today. So essential fats mean we cannot make these in our body. We absolutely need them for every function in our system. And if we don't take them in through our diet, it means that something is being compromised. Something isn't functioning optimally. So I want to draw your attention to the saturated fats, because those have gotten a bad name in the past through marketing and quite frankly, just misinformation. Your brain is pretty much made out of saturated fat and cholesterol. Every single cell of your body requires saturated fat and cholesterol to have healthy structures. So if you're not taking these in through your diet, or if you're cutting them out because you're afraid of high cholesterol, you are sacrificing some degree of integrity on a very physiological level. Okay. The omega-3s and omega-6s you can get from fish oil, you can get from meats, you can get from vegetables. Okay. Go ahead. You're muted.
Can you tie the fat to the commitment side? Let's keep coming
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
that.
yeah. That's right. Because I mentioned earlier that there are different ways that we use energy to move forward. And so we need that initial burst of energy to start something. Startup always takes a lot more energy. So like a plane taking off, lots of energy goes into liftoff. But then eventually you're going to hit cruising altitude. And when you do that, you're going to need to sustain that certain level of forward momentum in order to stay in flight. In our bodies, the analogy there is that we will often use sugar energy for quick bursts of energy, but to sustain it and to go long term, we need fat energy. That's actually how our bodies are built, is to use fat as the primary and long-term fuel source. Okay, the analogy that's often made about how fat and sugar work differently is if you were to make a fire, the sugar molecules are kind of like the pine needles and the kindling, the little sticks that you can start, and it burns hot and very fast. And that can start something bigger burning, but they don't last long and they don't make you very warm. If you want to stay warm, you want to put a log on the fire and have it burn for a long time. And that's what fats are like in your body. Okay, so you need these essential fatty acids, and then other things like avocados, which have a combination of some saturated fat and also omega-9s and oleic acid and things like that. Olive oil has that oleic acid in it. So there are many good quality fats you can get, but they're not all essential. I just wanted to point out the essential ones because, again, we can't manufacture those internally. And so I'm going to jump from that to the proteins really quick, okay, because you wanted to say something. You're muted.
It's okay. I just want to come back to, yeah, that I think that's good. That's the commitment. We can't have a sustained commitment if you're number one, dehydrated. So I'm just kind of going back to that. If you're dehydrated, it's really hard to have a sustained energy throughout the day. If you can't have a sustained energy throughout the day, you won't be able to make the commitment for 90 days. That is, psychologically, like in the science world, we say that you have to have 90 days minimum in order to change your patterns. And some people say maybe even up to 120 days. So if you don't have a sustained energy in a day, there's no way you're going to make a commitment to changing your life. So start with the metabolic energy, start with hydrating, number one. And number two is to get the good fats coming in that's balanced in your diet. And we've mentioned this before, but if you eat out, if you go and you eat your food from the restaurant or takeouts, you're going to be overly exposed to omega-6s. And because they use a lot of corn oil, seed oil, canola oil, soy oil and things like that are generally rancid, first of all, but they're all omega-6 fats. So you're going to be exposed to a lot of omega-6s. So this is why we always ask people questions like, how often do you eat out? When we work with the individuals, how often do you eat out? How much of the food comes from the restaurants or prepackaged foods? Then we know that you're exposed to omega-6s a lot. And that's going to throw off your omega-3 fatty acids. And when you throw off your omega-3s, that's going to have an impact on your brain health because your brain loves omega-3s and saturated fats. So that's the second portion, a second part of you need that in order to make the commitment for yourself. Then the three is where Chris is going to go into with the protein. And before we go into protein, I just wanted to clarify one thing about my lemon water. I do not drink lemon water all year, just so everyone is clear on this. Lemon water tends to ignite a little too much heat in my chi, in my energetic fields. So I don't do lemon water till springtime. Around April and May, I just naturally want to have something citrusy like a lemon juice. That helps me with my liver and gallbladder, so I go for it. But I stop drinking them in the winter. I don't really touch that in the fall either, okay? And it's something that helps me to move my chi flow, my liver flow. And if I do it too much and too often and all the time, it really makes me frustrated. It makes me really get my pitta, which is the fiery quality that I have inside me, really get ignited. And it's not very helpful for my liver chi. So I don't do that. So the key is seasonality. The key is your bioindividuality. You have to choose what works for you. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. So
yes, the flaxseed is omega-3s, but flax seeds go rancid very, 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 very fast.
6 actually. Omega-6 is what's mainly in the flax. It has, right?
No.
Am I mixing that up? No, I'm thinking of
No.
some of the other seed oils are 6 primarily.
Yeah, almost all the seed oils are omega-6s, but not flax seeds. The flax seeds will go rancid pretty much the moment that it's been created.
Yeah. So a quick note about here's how you can make a choice if you're shopping for oils for consumption, is take a look at the kind of bottle that they're in, because all fats, all oils are sensitive to sunlight. So if they start to break down as soon as light hits them. So you'll notice that the typically higher quality ones will be in a darker glass. And that's something that you want to look for because that will help to protect them and to keep their integrity. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to move on to the
Let's do the protein, and then we can answer questions.
Yeah, quick overview. So with the amino acids, there are 9 essential amino acids. I'm not going to quote them all off for you. There are many amino acids, which are the components of protein. So amino acids, when you stitch them together, they make up protein molecules. So we need 9 of them in particular that we cannot produce internally. And I just want to make this comment. I know that there are people that are vegetarian and vegan. In our experience, you almost have to be a food scientist to succeed at keeping yourself nourished. And speaking of commitment, that is a very determined commitment to be a healthy vegan or a healthy vegetarian. It's not impossible, but you really have to pay attention to measuring your food quantities and making sure that you're combining the right ingredients every day, or else you can find yourself very quickly with chronic deficiencies. And so for those of us that are more on the omnivore side, so eating meats, eating vegetables, things like that, it's much easier to meet that basic amino acid requirement for the essential ones that we cannot make for ourselves. And so the best source of those is going to be from animal proteins, but also a lot of vegetables have a partial profile of the essential amino acids. And so again, that's why it's difficult to get everything that you need from vegetables because you have to plan ahead.
Well, and then I'm going to go into much more detail about the vegetables, and you won't believe the stuff that I'm going to be sharing in my boundaries course that I'm recording. So definitely listen to that because I'm going to go into much more. We can't just tell you to say, hey, just start eating vegetables. There's so many layers of ways that we have to understand about how to eat vegetables in the correct manner so that it doesn't impact your body so hard and you start to develop calcifications all over your body, kidney stones and cataracts and bone growth and skin issues. Those things can happen because we're not eating the vegetables in the correct manner. So I will be recording that. So stay tuned for those of you that are taking that boundary course. It's really important. I cannot wait to share this because it gets in the way of your boundaries. Your boundaries become so permeable or too rigid because you're not eating them in the right way. Yeah. Okay. So I can't wait to share it. But anyway, I wanted to say that. And Chris, can I just jump in with this really interesting comment? I think I know you will have something to say about it. So Mary Claire says, grains are no. Yeah, we don't eat much grains ourselves. Sweet potatoes that's something that I'm just going to tell you guys. I'll be recording about sweet potatoes and you're going to be like, what? You'll be shocked by it, but I will be recording that in the boundaries class. But there's this idea, and in Mary Claire, I'm just going to put it out there and say, I want you to tune into yourself and answer that. Because she says, I love, basically love honey, all capital love honey, spiritual food for me. Okay. As carb. Okay. All right. So there's this like a really cool question that we ask when we work with clients. We say, do you have a food that you could never give up? Okay. Do you have a food? Okay. Or do you have a food that you put words like capital LOVE in front of it and say, I love it. I could never get rid of it. I just live on it. It's my favorite. Then to us, I'm sorry to announce this to you with my compassionate heart here. That's a red flag. That's a big red flag for us because that means you're having some issues with that food. Your body might be sending the signals to have you eat that for blood sugar issues or it could be that you're becoming allergic to certain foods or sensitivity, and you're getting addicted to that food. So that's actually, we will look at that kind of statement, say, can we play around with it? Okay, can we, play around? May I unmute? You can, but Chris, you have anything to say before she unmutes?
Yeah, maybe we can just wrap up with a couple of comments before we do that, just to get through our topic today. But so that just to come back to all of this together is that what we're speaking to here is a pattern that we see over and over and over. We've both lived through this pattern ourselves of wanting to accomplish things in our lives and continuing to run up against the wall of not enough metabolic energy, so that maybe we got through and we accomplished it, but the cost was so high to our bodies, and sometimes to our minds, and sometimes to our relationships. Okay. And so something to keep in mind always is that the care that you give to your body, Masami always says this, it's basically, it's like the love that you give to your body, it's going to give back to you 100-fold. And so when you're on the path to making change, making new commitments, not just things that sound good that you agree with, but real changes that you are setting in motion and seeing through to completion, they require all of you to make it over that finish line. You don't want to leave parts of you scattered along the way that fell off because they couldn't be sustained. Okay, you want to bring your whole self along for the ride in a way that is healthy and sustainable, and you finish with energy, and you stay the course with energy, and you start with energy. And these very basic things are so uninteresting. This mundane, boring stuff is what ends up making the biggest difference. So the exotic parts, I had to learn this lesson myself. It took me many, many years to learn this lesson. I resisted it. You can ask Masami, kicking and screaming at times. I did not want to accept the truth of this. But the things that our minds love to spend time on, the puzzles and the spiritual explorations, it's great. I love it. And I do that as often as possible. But without the body, nothing is possible. And in fact, if we forget about our body, what we do, even if we're doing what we want to, is less enjoyable if our body hasn't been cared for. So that's another component to think about, is you want to get to the end of your goals and be able to enjoy them. You want to have the energy to continue on and have more goals and other things that you will continue to learn and grow with.
I think that, the work that we do, and I'm glad you said that, Chris, it's really boring, everyone, because I get people that I'll do these like privates, and I'm sure they were kind of halfway expecting me to pull up like, I don't know, colors and things and vibrations, and then they meet, like a spontaneous healing that happens just by working with me. And I have to tell them, I'm like, you got to start drinking water, or you may need to go to bed 10 minutes earlier. Like it's so boring to the point that I think people are like, what? It's like, I thought you do something else. I'm like, no, that's what the body just said to me to talk to you about. Body contacted me to tell you that you really need to go to the bathroom every day. Like, you can't be constipated for 7 days at a time. Like it's basic in a way, but come back to the beginner's mind. I think the analogy that I kept using this past couple days is that we're trying to do, like we're in first grade, and then we're trying to do the math that's from like a senior year in high school, kind of a math. We're just learning numbers right now. We're learning how to add things, and we're learning how to subtract things. And so let's not go out of our way to start going, oh my God, these supplements are amazing. And people have all these crazy supplements and they're like amazing. But I'm like, you know what? But you're not drinking water and you're not going to bed early enough. So who cares about your 50 supplements you've studied about? Okay. I hope that makes sense. Like really start with the foundation. Let's just be in first graders together, all of us, and Let's take care of this so we can make a commitment all the way to graduate from high school, all of us together. Okay, so that's what I'm interested in.
Can I make another analogy really quick on that?
And we have to get Mary Claire to get on. So,
but just imagine if you're an infant. Okay, you're an infant. You're lying in a crib, dreaming about running marathons. Okay, just imagine the missing steps there. You have to learn to crawl first, right? You have to learn how to crawl first. And then once you can crawl, then you can start imagining what walking looks like. And then once you form your body into the shapes that are supportive of walking, you can actually start to toddle and become a toddler and stumble around and actually begin to walk. And then from there, you can actually start learning how to run. And then from there, you can start to learn how to run with purpose. So all of these things require steps and process, the right sequence, and you have to do the boring daily work. There's just no other way around it. So I'm going to pop up a quote that I've had sitting in my chat. I've said this before. This is not a new one. At the moment of commitment, the entire universe conspires to assist you. Okay, this is a great quote. It's one of my favorites. So at the moment of commitment, okay, everything comes together when you align all of your intention, all of your energy to move forward in the same direction and not be scattered around all over the place and just imagining this and imagining that and wishing for this, wishing for that. When you settle into commitment, it's a very different feeling. It is viscerally different. It's a calm, settled, pointed kind of sensation, and it actually allows you to sort of take a load off. You can relax because you've made a commitment and you're now in the stream and you can let it carry you. You just need to stay with it. Okay.
Yeah, I love this. I'm totally guilty of not enough water or sleep and a million fancy supplements. Yes, we have a lot of fancy supplements in our covers, don't we? But it's, you won't believe how many people we have to say, hey, you know what, just be kind. Let's drink water. Let's not go totally outside. And, you know, the analogy I always use is like, can we just dig the basement first, please? And let's get the foundation done. You know, I don't want to go to shop for your furnitures yet. I don't want to put curtains up on your windows yet because we don't even have a walls yet. So let's start with the first grader. Let's enter in together. That's the foundation, right? So that's what we are interested in. And thank you that we're not too boring. Some of you said we're not boring, so that's good. Okay, well, let's bring in the brave soul, Mary Claire. So I think I'm supposed to ask to unmute, right? Did I do that? Are you able to? Oh, there you go.
Thank you. I'll be very brief.
Sure.
I live multidimensionally, and I actually make videos documenting the elementals and fairy realms, and I do a lot of meditations on behalf of bees. So it's only recently that the honey came to be something I receive in the sense of like Masaru Emoto with water. It's a surrender. It's like, oh, look at this. I understand now this fragrance, this aromatherapy, this nutrition is packed with something more than I'm aware of. And it is a delightful gift. So that's what I mean. That I love it. I literally, thank you.
Well, so I have a question for you. How much honey are you eating?
I put honey in my coffee, and then every now and then I'll put some in my hand and lick it. I'll smell it. And
so it's like
a
one teaspoon?
Oh, no, much more than that. I'd say that maybe I have a quarter of a cup of honey a day.
Okay, so I need you to do a homework.
Bless it.
I need you to do a homework, okay? Because you're answering it from another dimension. Okay, your love of honey is not coming from the physiological dimension. Okay, so you need to ask this physical body that sits on this earth and make her make the decision how much honey. All right, The other
Thank you. I'll do that. You already
Yeah.
got me off chocolate from your thing. So thank you. I will do that.
So there's nothing wrong with honey. We cannot vilify honey. Honey is amazing. I just want you to ask your physical body how much of that honey is beneficial and supportive to your body, not to your spiritual mind or spiritual realm. All right. So be very careful who you're asking. Okay. You're welcome. All right. So I think that's it. Chris, do you have anything else to add? Anything that's coming in? I always want to go back to first grade, and I know I'm not sure I want to go back to school, but yeah, I know it could be a nice do-over there.
I think for me, it's been nothing but a relief every time I remember this idea of the beginner's mind, and to realize that not only are we not responsible in our minds to make these things happen, just take a moment and think about all of the trillions of processes your body is performing every day without you even knowing it. You being whatever we call this thing that calls itself me and I. No part in it whatsoever. And yet we have this idea that somehow we run the show. So this idea of, thanks Cheryl, chop wood and carry water, very important. And like I mentioned in one of our recent classes, another way to say the chop wood, carry water is simple tasks many times. It comes from the same source. Okay, it's a Japanese Zen saying. Okay, just simple tasks many times. And if we can get over the idea that it needs to be something other, it needs to come from somewhere other than where we are right now. It needs to be something more, I don't know, more glamorous or fabulous or fantastical. It doesn't need an adjective, okay? It just needs to be what we need. That's the basic rule for health in your body and for having that experience of active wellness. Okay, you just need what is needed now. On top of that, whatever comes is amazing. It's such a bonus. But take care of what's needed now first, and it will take care of the rest for you. So that's all I've got for today, I think.
Yeah, and I would like to end it, but I had a really interesting question that came in. And Selena says, you speak about the seasons, but what if I live in the tropics? Okay, so I grew up in a semi-tropical island, and there's a seasonality in the tropics, but it more of a shows up as morning into the noontime into the evening. So your seasonality may be that it's a little bit more throughout the day. So you got to pay attention to that. And even you live in tropics, there are seasonal changes. And there will be times that you will be exposed to a lot more rain because we have rainy seasons, right? In the tropics most of the time. So you want to pay attention to when is it rainy. That's going to maybe create a little more fungal overgrowth or yeast and fungal stuff. So that's when you may need to change the way you eat. So there's wisdom in that too. So it's never always ever flat. Nothing is ever flat in the same. So find it in those morning, in the afternoon, into the evening. There'll be changes there too. So pay attention to those needs as well. Okay. All right. So I think we're good. We can go on, but I think we need to let all of you go. So thank you everyone for showing up, and we see you, and then we will see you actually next week. We're taking the week off to celebrate my birthday. So we'll be back the week after. So that'll be 1st of May. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.